Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. What I'd love to do on this beautiful Sydney summer morning is to go through a book, and the book that I've selected for today's episode is entitled The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. This book was published a while ago, back in 1962, by an author named Thomas Kuhn. This book is a landmark work in the philosophy of science that explores how scientific paradigms have shifted and how progress in science often occurs through revolutionary step changes rather than mere incremental steps. So let's see what we can take from this text, what we can learn, and what we can incorporate into our lives and use to try and better the decisions we make and how we see and understand the world. So the first key point to come from this author is that science is not linear. Scientific progress does not necessarily follow a steady cumulative path, but occurs through massive paradigm shifts that disrupt the existing and established norms. And the author goes on to also mention that paradigms actually shape our thinking. Scientists operate within paradigms, and paradigms, according to this author, are described as shared frameworks of theories and practices that define their approach to understanding and looking at problems. The author goes on to also say that there are anomalies that often drive changes in thinking. When data or observations cannot be explained within the existing framework, within the existing paradigm, they create pressure for change. And what they do is they create a level of OCD that people, scientists, can't bear to live with, and force them to think and to experiment and to try and understand what causes these things to occur and how they can impact the way people behave. And the other key point to come from this author is that crisis usually precedes revolutions or these step functions in science. Scientific revolutions, according to this author, often arise when a paradigm faces persistent crisis that it can't seem to manage nor resolve. So as they say, difficulties bring out the best in people, and loss is the mother of invention. Similarly, within the science community, crisis has often led revolutions and changes in thinking. The author goes on to also mention that normal science often resists change. And I guess now that I'm about 65 years of age, I've learnt myself that the older we get, the less willing we are to change, and we want to just simply take life as it is and just plod along. And the same thing happens within scientific communities that suffer groupthink. And the author here mentions that within a paradigm, scientists focus on solving puzzles rather than questioning the foundational assumptions. We get caught up in our ways, we get caught up in a particular way of thinking. And we need revolutions, we need disruptions to shift and to motivate people to change and to want to change. And it's through these disruptive revolutions, through these disruptive thought patterns, that people shift their thinking, shift their way of looking at things, and hopefully revolutionise what they do and how they think and what they come up with. And these paradigm shifts actually redefine and reshape the field, rendering prior assumptions and methods obsolete and requiring a complete rethink of the fundamental concepts that were held so dearly previously. We also need to be smart and to realise that there is a certain level of subjectivity in science. Scientists' adherence to established paradigms can lead to biases, as they may resist evidence that challenges their accepted framework. And as we know, biases occur in all decisions, and these biases are rampant within the scientific communities. And the next point that the author makes is the incommensurability of paradigms, where he talks about the fact that competing paradigms are often difficult to compare because they involve fundamentally different assumptions and methods, and hence you can have different scientists expressing different thoughts, and it's all okay because they have different fundamental beliefs. And we look at the social and historical context and how it matters. Scientific progress is influenced by cultural, historical, and institutional factors, not just empirical data. And scientific progress is not about finding absolute truth, but about shifting the frameworks to better explain and predict the phenomena. Kuhn's work challenges traditional views of science, emphasising that revolutions in thought often lead to deeper understanding and transformative advancements. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5 a.m. Club on this magnificent and most beautiful Sydney summer morning.